Welcome to the Pulse by GRESB. I'm your host, Sarah Welton, the director of the GRESB Foundation. I'm joined today by two members of the GRESB Foundation Board, Esther Ann, Chief Sustainability Officer of City Developments Limited, and Katie Jowett, Head of Sustainability at LaSalle Global Solutions. Katie is also the chair of the GRESB Foundation Board. We are excited to share the Foundation's recently published Principles for Governing Standards Development. These principles mark an important step in further strengthening how the standards evolve, improving the governance of the standards, and ensuring that change happens in a transparent, consistent way. The principles were designed to support and reinforce the collaboration between investors and managers to drive change in the real estate and infrastructure industries. Welcome, Katie and Esther. Thank you both for joining me today. Both of you have extensive experience with the GRESB standards over the last 15 years, including reporting, analyzing results, and serving on both benchmark committees and the board. I would like to start by asking you how you envision the principles will guide improved standards development process. Katie, I'll start with you. As an investor, you fully appreciate the GRESB Foundation's aims to facilitate constructive engagement between managers and investors. Can you talk about how the principles support this dialogue between investors and managers by offering information investors need to understand and improve performance?
Of course. So to set the scene, when we designed the principles, we were really looking to strengthen the collaboration between both investors and participants, which is really one of the core missions of GRESB. And I can say as an investor and one that has personally been involved with the ins and outs of GRESB since back in 2010, I really do understand the need for constructive engagement in order to drive real change. And I've seen firsthand how successful that can be if it's done right. And one of our aims of these principles is to not only enhance dialogue by providing clear governance for change, but also to make the entire process more transparent and predictable for everyone involved, whether you're an investor or a participant. And what I find particularly valuable from the process of creating the principles is that going forward, we'll be classifying changes based on their potential scoring impact, as well as estimating both the magnitude and the pace of that change. And participants will also be receiving forward-looking information about those potential changes and how that relates to relative scoring impacts, which we all know is absolutely critical for planning and implementation for firms. And I really do hope these points go a long way in addressing a key pain point from last year in 2024, where a lot of participants were caught off guard by scoring impacts, especially those in the US market and or operating diversified portfolios. And the last point I'd like to raise is that the foundation is also committed to reducing sensitivity to small data differences in their scoring methods, which hopefully should create more stability in the ratings process as a whole.
That's great to hear. And I agree. I think the industry recognizes that we need to evolve the standards, but we don't need to surprise anyone. We don't need to shock anyone. So providing that foresight and allowing there to be predictability is going to not only help both participants and investor, but ultimately drive change in a more methodical and smart way. Esther, I will turn to you. One of your favorite topics, we all know, is the need to reduce reporting burden. We cannot have this be an unnecessarily onerous process for managers. Now, there are two sides to the reporting burden calculation. Can you talk about how the principles seek to maximize the value of the assessment outputs?
Thank you for having me. I think the principle is really a good initiative to provide guidance and also greater clarity on reporting. And we are living in a fast-changing world filled with climate, political, social, and economic challenges. So tracking and reporting performance is very critical for business sustainability. It is very true that what gets measured gets managed. But the challenge is how we can create value through reporting. Is this the more the merrier? Is it more complex the better? I think what we should do is we should turn reporting into strategic tool to enhance business resilience and also sustain growth of our company and good for the stakeholders as well. It should not be just an operational checklist to tick boxes. The selection and adoption of reporting and disclosure standards and framework is therefore very critical. Over time, the market has seen GRESB as the de facto standard for sustainable management and performance, particularly for the real estate sectors, as a bridge between the managers and investors. And we're really glad to see that GRESB responded by making robust updates to the assessment every year in response to the ever-evolving landscape and market trends and expectations. And it is important for the foundation to continue to ensure that the assessment results offer managers and investors robust and useful information to make very important investment decisions that can help unlock value. We must also identify and prioritize changes to reduce participation costs and resource requirements. As a corporate with nearly 2 decades of reporting experience, I'm really glad to see that the foundation recognizes the importance of alignment with major and relevant sustainability and green building reporting standards and framework around the world. This is in line with the global harmonization of reporting standards and framework to streamline reporting requirements and improve interoperability of key benchmark and framework. That will really help reduce reporting burden and create value for both corporate reporters and investors.
Absolutely. This alignment is one of the absolute keys that we need to keep an eye on and stay focused. We're keeping track of what's happening around the world and, again, not making it an onerous process just for the fact of reporting, but really making sure that we're driving information and intelligence and changes forward. Thank you, Esther. Katie, let's close on an optimistic note. How do you envision that the principles will support the foundation's aim to raise the bar for real asset performance?
Sure, I think this is done in a few ways. First, they maintain GRESB's role as a market transformation tool, while at the same time really acknowledging that we need to adapt to an increasingly diverse and global dynamic market. Second, they address a critical concern about benchmark-based scoring, which honestly created quite a bit of uncertainty last year. To help address this, the foundation will now be identifying opportunities to shift towards fixed or absolute thresholds where it makes sense. An example of this is using ASHRAE standards to set absolute energy efficiency thresholds, and this will really help recognize the more high-performing assets that don't really have the room for big year-on-year improvements or change. The last thing that I'd mention is that the principles will establish a clear pathway for innovation. So the foundation will be working on developing mechanisms to recognize exceptional performance and innovation, I think, which will help differentiate participants and really inform how the standards will evolve over time. And it's my hope that this balanced approach will really ensure that we continue to raise the bar while also providing the stability and predictability that participants and investors need.
Yeah, you raised some really great points. Again, this market transformation, that's the aim of the foundation. That's exactly why we exist. And we've already heard a lot of really positive feedback about referencing ASHRAE, particularly, as you said, from those high performance assets that honestly couldn't make year-on-year improvements. So let's recognize their high performance as it were. And I'm personally really excited about the pathways for innovation because we don't know what awesome things are going on out there. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what participants bring to the table and showcase the great work that they are already doing within their assets. I want to thank both you, Katie and Esther, for joining me today. I hope all of our listeners have enjoyed this conversation and certainly welcome any questions or comments after listeners have had a chance to review the principles. And that is about all the time we have for today's episode. I really sincerely appreciate the work that all of the foundation members do for these principles and for the time that you guys all dedicate to the foundation. Your support is critical to the success of the foundation and the standards. I've been your host, Sarah Welton. See you next time on The Pulse by GRESB.